The corruption scandals that have rocked Namibia under the leadership of the SWAPO party has given much rise to dissent in the country, especially following last year's presidential elections. All I can say is that this year's regional council and local authority elections are going to be lit. We saw the rise of the controversial independent candidate, Dr. Panduleni Itula, whom the Namibian nation has to thank for the use of electronic voting machines without a paper trail being deemed unconstitutional. In March this year, the SWAPO party expelled him, and he has now launched his own political party, the Independent Patriots for Change. Dr. Panduleni Itula was sworn in as the president of the Independent Patriots for Change on his birthday, which incidentally is just a day before President Hage Geingoob's birthday.
There has been a gradual decay in the moral abilities of our leaders to have the moral fiber to continue to advance the values and principles that all of those soldiers stood for. When I realized that the principles in our constitution, the Constitution of the Republic of Namibia, were no longer being practiced, when I realized that the Constitution of the SWAPO of Namibia principles are no longer being followed, that was the time I concluded there was a betrayal. There was a betrayal of the members of the party I belonged and the party that I loved because of its principles. There was a betrayal of the values of the Namibian constitution. There was a betrayal of the promises that were made by the politicians when they marched into office and turned around to call our people only voting machines, empowering them to go into office in an organized manner and loot the resources of our country with their friends, with their families. Yet our entire country continue to suffer in abject poverty. Our people continue to have lack of basic needs: water, electricity, sanitation. We now had people building roads to an airport when we don't even own a plane. Who are you building the roads for? We now have got people who took out loans on behalf of the people of Namibia to renovate and improve the airport. What percentage of Namibians use the plane? We've gone to the extent of selling our mines and our resources without even consulting our people. And yet, we claim our people are the ones that we are in government for. We have gone a long distance where we only got political freedom. And the leaders we entrusted with the task of empowering our people empowered themselves. They turned their back against the people of Namibia. It was a leaking calabash. The drops were not so obvious. But now, the entire calabash is open. We can now see the looting and the corruption, the fish rod, the SME, the GIPF, the CORA. It's all there. And we have a president that says, I don't know anything. All those led me to author the topic, the viability of an independent presidential candidate to contest in the independent national presidential elections last year. And ever since that time, I wasn't sure what is it that I was doing. What is it that I've just created? Some people laughed it off. The political scientists said, no, that's not possible. Others went even to the Oxford Dictionary to seek an explanation of what an independent presidential candidate is. They failed to simply look at one word in the Namibian constitution. Within Article 17, the word indirect. That is not what Oxford University Dictionaries has explained. And says then, a wave of education had taken place, where I was educating the Namibian people and empowering them on their rights in the Constitution. That is what we fought for.
Dr. Itula went through it last year, taking on the government not only as the first independent candidate within the ruling party to contest for the presidency, but also challenging the constitutionality of the use of electronic voting machines without a paper trail. At the launch of his new political party, the Independent Patriots for Change, he remarked on the journey he has endured following his attempt to run as an independent candidate in last year's election.
When the untruth is spoken, you don't react. I've never seen an untruth causing a wound painful enough to make you react. You ignored it. So I did. I marched on. And when I was finally registered by the Electoral Commission of Namibia, the sea of waves of Namibians following only one thing, change, became unbearable. Thousands and thousands of Namibians in Okanjegedi, in Walvis Bay, and in Windhoek marched behind that phenomenon for change. We marched in search of a solution to the suffering of our people. We believed and trusted in our Constitution, in our laws. Yet, we did not realize that even our judges would not respect the supremacy of the Namibian parliament and the supremacy of the Namibian constitution in separation of powers. We realized that even our judges could allocate constitutionality from unconstitutional conduct. Our judges in the Supreme Court thrusted upon the people of Namibia an unconstitutional president. An unconstitutional president who is conscious and aware that he is unconstitutional in his performance of his presidential duties. But what do we have to do? That is what our judges gave us. We will respect the office, the highest office in the land of the brave.
One of the contentious issues that has divided the ruling party is whether or not President Gebhardt bought support for his candidacy using funds siphoned through stinky means. At the launch of his new political party, the Independent Patriots for Change, Dr. Panduleni Itula called on President Gebhardt to tell the truth about the fishrot scandal and other scandals that have rocked the Namibian nation.
Even if you don't have a moral fiber to respect the dignity of our people, to just come forward and tell us the truth. Nothing lasts forever. No tree bears fruit forever. What you know shall not be hidden forever. It will surface. But be courageous and say it to us. We deserve to know if we entrusted you with the power to govern this land of the brave. Did you know when you were sitting in cabinet 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017? Did you know, or was it Al Jazeera that told you? Did you know that Saki Shangala, Bernard Esau were busy looting the coffers of the nation? These are questions you cannot escape. this nation and generations to come, even if you don't tell us, will continue to ask the same question. Have you betrayed the trust of the people of Namibia? Comrade President, there was a fisherman here. He told us 26 of his colleagues who suffered as a result of the looting of our fishery died. Is there any moral left in you? Any ethical principle that could define your humanity to even apologize to those fishermen's families who died, at least in one aspect as head of state? Have you expressed remorse for their loss? Yes, our nation has expressed remorse. You are the president of a nation where people are today living in Twaloloka after the fire that devastated their homes. Call them sharks. Call them what you want. Even if you propose to change the name, you will not change the sufferings of the people. They will remain Twaloloka. The nation is saying, we are tired. Twaloloka is but one voice of 995,000 Namibians living in various conditions, from the Zambezi all the way to Marindal. Comrade President, you shall not rest until you tell this nation what you knew. Because my voice will no longer be silent. Your Excellency, we shall not cease to have our vocal cords vibrating in asking you, did you know?
Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? Did you know? No. No. Did you know?
Artist Bolly Mutseng, inspired by the political landscape in this country, has released yet another track called Twaloloka. Check it out.
And Daddy also dreamed his children will fly over water. Lots of millions, lots of fish left in a boat to Iceland. Here they come again, looking for Bill, looking for another way to do it again. This morning, Daddy was on the streets where these colleagues and these comrades are mine. Daddy don't want to lose his job. Daddy's friends has lost their lives. So now the people standing over here with the posters, they want fishing quotas themselves, so they can create a job and build a house and feed their family. But she won't buy cheaper. This morning Daddy was told not to come to work. The landlord wants all his money. She said, Daddy, don't play with fire. And the neighborhood was up in flame. This fire couldn't start himself. Twaloloka, somebody's lying to me again. This fire couldn't start himself. Twaloloka, I'm so sick and tired myself.
This year's regional council and local authority elections are going to be lit. I spoke to the national chairman of the new political party, the Independent Patriots for Change, Brian Black, who has been vocal about the injustices Namibians have endured under the leadership of the SWAPO party.
This party exists for a number of reasons because, as we said, for 30 years, we find ourselves in a situation where our national resources was looted. Our people were not benefiting from the national resources. After 30 years of independence, more than 1/3 of our people are still living in corrugated shacks, and a lot of them are still finding themselves at breaches looking for food. Others are sleeping under breaches, and we believe close to 50% of our young people are unemployed, are roaming in the street looking for alternatives. So because we find ourselves in a situation where the SWAPO regime or government have failed our nation because of excessive greed, maladministration, and corruption, they failed to manage the resources of national resources of our country in a manner that would have enabled the huge resources of our nation to reach the poor. We decided to come up with the IPC. Now, yes, people will ask question, why did we not join the existing parties? Why did we not, for instance, form a movement together with AR and so on? But let me start by saying we know that for 30 years, most of the opposition party that we currently have in parliament, with the exception of the Landless People's Movement, the others have been all there the last 30 years. And they also failed to come up with an alternative for the Namibian people. And because of all this, we decided to get like-minded people to form the Independent Patriots for Change. And what was key for us, we believe in grassroots democracy that originates from the grassroots level. And we didn't want to impose ourselves onto the people as leaders. As you know, I have been very active against corruption. I petitioned the president on corruption and various other things, but we didn't, and the general response was, why don't you guys make yourself available as leaders? Why don't you start a new party with Dr. Itula? The question was not, why don't you join an existing political party? Because the majority of the people know that the opposition parties have also failed to provide them an alternative. With that in mind, we decided to call a founding convention of the people from the grassroots level, where the delegates, they form temporary branches, and they send delegates now to founding convention. And at the founding convention, the current leadership was then proposed and endorsed by people who came from the grassroots level. There will be various things that we will do differently. Number one, we will make 100% sure that the fruits of Namibian independence is enjoyed by all, and not only a selective few. We will make sure that we don't have one tribe only benefiting from the fruits of independence, but even among that one tribe, you will be surprised to see how many people have been phoning me, crying how they have been suffering under the SWAPO regime. Veterans of the liberation movement yesterday were standing in the queues to hand in the SWAPO membership ticket and to join the new movement for change. So that's what we will do differently. We will make sure that our national events become really what it is, and not only a one-party affair. You know, today, go to our national events. How many people do you see other than just a few that have always traditionally been there, and the majority of them being black faces? You don't see white people, you don't see coloreds, you don't see the other. We are saying, yes, one Namibia, one nation. We're still standing by that principle. But did we live under the SWAPO regime? Did we live out that principle? No, we didn't. So what we will make sure is to make 100% sure that all Namibians are included, is to make sure that all our people, people who have up till to date said, we can't raise our voices because we will not be heard, it won't make a difference. We want to make sure that they know that there is a place for them.
And with that, it's a wrap. Artist Boli Mutseng's latest inspiration, Twaloloka, plays us out this week. Stay woke with It's a Wrap by following us on our social media pages. It's a Wrap Nam on Insta, It's a Wrap Namibia on YouTube, and It's a Wrap with Erika Gebhardt on Facebook. You can also catch the live stream on Facebook on One Africa TV, Sunday nights at 7:30. One Africa TV, Mus. It just gets better.
Twaloloka, somebody's lying to me again. These buyers couldn't start themselves. Twaloloka, I'm so sick and tired myself. Soldiers came, struck the fire, end up shooting people with rubber bullets, rubber bullets. So now the people throw black stones at the soldiers. Grab a few things cause they in the line of fire. Some are looking for voters cause in them are hiding. Election time is coming again. This morning mommy saw what happened in a fire. The red is something smaller. She said mommy don't make no fire. Twaloloka, enough is enough. This fire students start themselves. Twaloloka, somebody's lying to me again. This fire students start themselves. Twaloloka, I'm so sick and tired myself. She said, they don't play with fire. Twaloloka, somebody's lying to me again. She says, money don't make no fire. Twaloloka, I'm so sick and tired myself.